It's a Final Word Daily here in Ahmedabad, Day 2. Adam Collins and Jeff Lemon, we are in matching shirts. Jeff, tell us about the day's play in 30 seconds.
255 for 4 when Australia resumed. Usman Khawaja and Cameron Green batted for a million years, or at least well into the second session. Green brought up a century. Khawaja went past 150, not that anyone cares about that. 3 wickets fell in quick succession after Green, but then Khawaja pulled things together with Nathan Lyon. He gets that first ball out after T. Khawaja for 180. Lyon goes on to put it in 70 runs with Todd Murphy, who made 41. Australia ended up making 480, and India were none for 36 at the close.
Khawaja's longest innings in Test cricket by a mile. We thought the Dubai Epic was something, 303 balls, and believe me, it was, but he faced more than 100 in addition to that, which again is a little bit...
422.
422 is the final number. Also Nathan Lyon's longest innings in Test cricket. We might come back to that a little bit later, but yeah, Khawaja, powers of concentration. The real story is, of course, Cameron Green. First Test century, well waited for in many ways. It's his 20th Test match. A little bit deceptive how long he's actually been around the Test side for, making contributions, but we just both spoke to him after play then, and the way he's described it is like checking a box. He had to do it at some point. To do it in India, not many Australians have done that in the last, 22 years since the 2001 series. There've not been loads and loads of tons. The fact that Green adds his name to that list is a pretty special thing. He was in great spirits after play, as you would be. He timed his innings so well. The way he went up the gears and down the gears as the game required it. Yeah, sure, maybe they didn't quite score at the tempo they could have in the first half of the day, but that's being hypercritical. I don't share that view. I think taking it deep was the right thing to do, because this surface is kind of more like what we saw in Pakistan last year, when it's about exhausting an opposition rather than trying to scramble as many runs as you can in a short space of time.
Well, what they did was, when the opportunity came to score, they didn't hold back. There's the over from Umesh Yadav where Cameron Green takes 3 boundaries from it. There's the over just before the break when he's got up to 92. And then it's like, well, he could, he scores a couple quickly and he's into the 90s, and then he could wig out and just try to get a couple more in the last 4 balls to get to the century, but he just takes a single down the ground and says, no worries, I'll go to lunch on 95, I'll come back and get it done afterwards, which he does do. So there was the willingness to attack when the opportunity presented itself, but aside from that, really what Australia wanted to do was just bat through the day, or as much of the day as possible, and the scoreboard would take care of itself.
Yeah.
And it did. Like, yes, they could have had 550 if they'd batted faster, but they also might have not got 480 if they'd batted faster. It's more about trying to give the pitch time to break up. I'm not sure that it will, but there was the possibility that it might.
Some balls turned today, not many, but some did. Ashwin had it on a string, 6 for 91 from 47.2 overs. Think about the economy rate in the context of Australia having 2 days to bat in that were 35, 36 degrees, with Khawaja so well set. They show so much respect to Ashwin because he commands it. Over the wicket, around the wicket, tweaking the field every over. All of the other idiosyncratic parts of Ashwin's game combined today. He takes us as a spell of 3 for 2 at one stage to give them a chance of bowling out Australia for maybe 410, 420. That's when Murphy and Lyon come together for that really interesting partnership that, again, we'll come to in a little bit, I suppose. But it's Ashwin that gave them the chance to get Australia out, maybe not before tea, but in and around tea. They do hold on, but Ashwin gets wickets 5 and 6. His 32nd bag of 5 in Test cricket. He narrows the margin to 6 with Nathan Lyon, for those who are watching the race to 500, watching him at the press conference then as well. He's also a happy man, knowing that after indoor, he'd have been bruised by indoor. He'd have been bruised by the fact that even though they only had 76 to defend, it was Ashwin who they went after at the crucial moment. That would have affected him, I reckon. And to bounce back today, well, it was probably foretold.
It was interesting the way he spoke about it. So first of all, one thing to note, 6 today, that takes him to 113 against Australia.
Wow.
That takes him past James Anderson. That means there are only 6 players ahead of him who've taken more wickets against Australia. You know, and you're talking all-timers, and mostly it's England's up. Both them, Broad, Bob Willis, top of my head, can't remember the other 3, but I'll check that later. But what he said today in the press conference was the most interesting bit, because he was asked, what did you do differently today? You took 5 for 34. Yesterday you took 1 for heaps. And he said, I did nothing. I bowled as well yesterday as I did today, and things don't always fall your way. But he said it was almost like karmic investment. He goes, the fact that I bowled that well yesterday and only took 1 meant that at some point I was going to have to take some, and they came today. And he was also quite funny and very frank about it. He said, look, I'm not going to try to pretend that I set up a plan to get Cameron Green caught down the leg side sweeping off the glove. He said I was trying to do very different things to Cameron Green, but sometimes that's the nature of the thing, that something falls your way.
You earn it, right? Cricket gods, do you believe in them? I kind of do. If you do, then...
Probability. I believe in probability. And
Either
over a
way.
long enough timeline, probability comes back to me.
All of these things, and getting Green down the leg side, which really was against the flow of play, right? A 208-run partnership is the biggest fifth wicket partnership Australia have ever enjoyed in India. And Green actually sped up after passing 100. He crunched a cut shot to get there, which I really enjoyed on commentary because it felt fitting that Green would get there playing such a dominant shot given the way that he sped through to 49 at the close of play last night.
And his drives, his cover drives and his straight drives, where when he gets on the front hoof and just booms them away, like it's a real sonic boom kind of Street Fighter variation of the shot.
And it's nice the way that he and Usman come together. They probably haven't batted together too often in Test cricket. I think they put a shift in together in Gaul last year, but for the most part, Green at 6, Khawaja opening, they don't get to share the crease too often together. And there was that, you could see it, there was that constant dialogue between Khawaja and his younger teammate, sort of spurring him on to get to 3 figures while Khawaja effectively played second fiddle. And again, that was reminiscent of his Karachi century last year. Gets there on day 1, in no hurry on day 2, but he is, again, that sort of trunk that you can build around. Gets to 180, out first ball after tea. The quirk there, of course, being Pujara was the man responsible with the review. First ball leading India. This is really Hall of Fame worthy, but anyway, we've got plenty for that today. First ball leading India, because Rohit was off the field at the time, calls for a review and gets it right. That's overturned with Khawaja not able to get his front pad out the way.
So he's at 100%. Cheteshwar Pujara is at 100%.
And may it last forever. Who knows if he ever gets the chance to stand in as Indian captain ever again. I hope he does. I love Pujara, but
it was a really good review too, because it was on the line of the leg stump. You could easily have thought, I think it might be slipping down, and it hit him above the knee roll. And Khawaja's not the shortest player going around, but because the bounce in the pitch was so low, they decided that that's going to be keeping low enough to get under the stumps, which it was for 3 reds. 1 for the line on leg stump as well. Yeah, I mean, I would have loved to have seen Khawaja get 200 after being not denied 200 at Sydney, but the way the circumstances played out with rain, being declared on 195, that would have been a nice little bauble for him. But I want to talk about the significance of this innings though, because Khawaja's patience. He batted through 5 sessions. The heat out there, it wasn't as hot as it was in Dubai, but remember in Dubai he batted over 9 hours, I think, from memory, in that second innings. He batted over 10 hours here today. It must be something about when the conditions are really rough, it helps him concentrate in a way. Maybe he just puts everything else out of his mind and just bats for survival. And he just ticked off singles, found the odd boundary, and built his score at exactly the same tempo through the entire 5 sessions that he batted. Now, 608 minutes, 422 balls. So, in terms of balls faced, that's the 11th most ever in India, for an innings in India. Not every innings has the balls faced recorded though, so there are a few where it might be higher than that because over 8s were faster in the earlier days and players might have faced more deliveries. But minutes, most innings have a minutes tally recorded. That's top 10 all time, 608 minutes for innings played in India. Border-Gavaskar's got a couple faster, a couple slower than that, or that went on longer than that. But very few players, Pujara's got one, I think, but very few players have batted longer, spent longer at the crease in this country than Khawaja did in this match. Yeah,
Pujara at the Rancho Relaxo last time facing 525 balls. That was on my radar. I did see 525 on my sheet and thought, well, Khawaja conceivably could get to that if he goes all the way to stumps, but that wasn't to be. And we said we'd come back to the partnership between Todd Murphy and Nathan Lyon. What a joyous thing that was. Now, bearing in mind Murphy had been out for 3 ducks in 5 Test innings, and we keep getting told by our colleagues who watch more Shield cricket than we can that on debut he played a match-winning hand with the bat. Even though it's only been kind of 1 innings, Louis Cameron, who's working with us on commentary, he's made that point a number of times that, believe me, this guy can actually do it. And today he got the chance to do so and looked really good. His defence was impeccable from the moment he walked out there, super committed to the cause. And even though the conditions were far easier than the other tests he's played in so far, you still got to do it. You still got to get that first boundary away. You still got to, get to that first interval and then restart after that. That he was doing so with Nathan Lyon, who'd already copped a whack to the helmet and a whack to the arm, which is causing a bit of concern, by the way. That right arm, he was favouring that when bowling before stumps too. That's one to watch for tomorrow. But yeah, they came together well, the 2 off-spinners. Lyon, his longest Test innings, longer than the one he played at Bridgetown, which was 83 balls, I think, in 2012. This was 93 balls today for 33. He'll probably never make a Test half-century. I dared to dream, Jeff, that today might have been the day with back-to-back boundaries to get him into the 30s, but Ashwin intervened and got the last 2 wickets. But yeah, enormous credit to Todd Murphy for getting through to the final test, having not even registered a score in double digits, to go out and make 41, that takes him doing at a time when India had the chance to really get back in a test match.
Highest score of 3 not out before today. He had 5 runs in his career. His average was 1.25 before he came out to bat today. And this is a guy who was sent out at number 9 on debut with the view that he must be able to handle the blade.
They'd seen something at training, right?
Yeah, they must have thought
he
was. I mean, he was ahead of Cummins and he was ahead of Lyon.
Yeah.
And both of those two have, neither of them are world class with the bat, but they've played a lot of Test cricket. They batted in a lot of Test cricket.
Yes.
They know how to not panic in that sort of situation. So he must have been good enough to have been promoted ahead of them.
It's kind of funny. His highest score for St Kilda is 26,
Okay.
playing in grade cricket. So there's kind of nothing there statistically, but it's all kind of in the eye. And, if what we've seen today with the eye is that he can play really nicely through the offside off the front foot, well, that's something. Not a lot of guys even have that.
Well, I was sent through on Twitter from Matt up in the Echuca-Moama region. They're a sort of Tony Gregg style commemorative photo display of Todd Murphy making 100 for, I think it was Moama Cricket Club against Rochester in 2016-17.
Lovely.
And it was all of his shots, all around the ground. Still got the specs on, the back foot punch, the cut shot, the pull, and he made 130 odd apparently in this game. I'm not quite sure that the level of bowling was the same as it was today, but 41 in a Test match, you can't take that away from him.
Not everyone's got 100. There are a lot of international cricketers doing the rounds who've never made 100 in any form of cricket, so there is that for him. I never saw him clean his glasses. I was looking for this all innings. We spoke to him before the Test about whether he cleans his glasses when bowling. He says he's quite strategic about it. He does it every time the drinks come out, or change of innings, or rather the change of session and all the rest of it. He's never had to get the Jack Leach style glasses cleaner out, and I didn't see him do it today either, so one to watch for in the future.
Yeah, and at least they'll have a much easier excuse, the Australians, if they do some Jack Leach mimicry in future. They'll be able to say, oh no, we were just doing Todd Murphy. No, he bats left-handed. Yeah, the glasses. Yeah, that guy.
India got off to a flyer before stumps. Nathan Lyon got hit for a massive 6 into the sight screen. I suspect that'll be in the Hall of Fame. But yeah, none for 36 from 10 overs, but some really dominant boundaries from Shubman Gill, especially off the front.
Looks good. Was there a ball that didn't hit the middle of the bat?
I was going to say the same thing. Shubman Gill, every ball he faced, defensively or otherwise, right out the screws. So I know the way he played in the second innings last week, we were highly critical of. It was the moment that gave Australia a big chance of bowling out India inside 2 sessions, which proved decisive. I think that was day 2, by the way, Jeff. There were 30 wickets by stumps day 2 at indoor. There have been 10 wickets here. You do the math. But
right.
that they were able to bat so well despite being in the field for nearly 2 days, that is a little bit ominous for the touring Australians tomorrow.
And the one that Rohit Sharma hit off the pads, that timing, that perfection of timing, that caress, is there a more Rohit Sharma shot than the flick off the pad? Sometimes it goes behind square, sometimes it goes through mid-wicket. If it's a T20 match, for instance, it might go 20 rows back. He's got that ability to put power on that shot, even though I can't see how anybody could put power on that shot. It's like he can use it in all conditions, in all formats, and in all variations, but all of them are essentially the same shot. Yeah,
it's so restful as well. Like the way he plays it, it looks as like he's sort of almost nodding off as he makes contact with the ball. Asleep in perfection. Augie March, there you go. There's one for you 90s music fans from Melbourne.
Oh yeah.
Any of you out there in the YouTube comments?
I wrote I'm just going to say this, people might not agree, but I wrote a great piece once called One Crowded Hour. It was when Shane Watson took down Graham Swan at the Wacker.
You too. I did it when Stuart Broad bowled out Australia in an hour. I wrote the One Crowded Hour piece as well, and I might have used it on commentary last week too, about a busy hour of play.
Yeah. Well,
anyway, same band.
That was probably the collapse in Delhi, wasn't it? That would have been.
Oh no, it was. That's exactly what it was.
I'm imagining it would have been exactly that. Right, the Final Word Hall of Fame, where we pick the most final word moment of the day. It's brought to you by visitmelbourne.com. That's the website where you can plan your escape to visit Melbourne. Have you ever been to see fairy penguins? I'm just going to bring this up. They're like regular penguins, but way smaller and cuter.
I have seen them as a youngster down at Phillip Island, of course. I think we all made that trip when we were kids. So it's a beautiful place down there. I've spent a New Year's Eve down there when I was younger. I don't remember an awful lot about it, if I'm honest with you, but I did spend New Year's down there, and I did kiss someone at midnight.
Oh, well, okay. Was it a penguin?
No.
Okay, all right. Well, they're quite small. You'd have to lean down a long way. The thing about fairy penguins, though, is they're extremely adorable. And everybody likes penguins, right? Especially cartoony ones. They're the most cartoony ones of all. And they're only in Victoria. They're nowhere else. That's where fairy penguins come and live on the beach in their little burrows, and they hatch out and they waddle around. They do their penguin stuff. and you can only see them if you visit Melbourne, and you can only do that if you work out how to get there at visitmelbourne.com.
There's also the aquarium where the penguins are as well. I took my young daughter there a couple of years ago, and she was absolutely fascinated by the penguins running around in there. So lots of options, lots of things to do. Best city in the world. Get down there. Book your Melbourne visit. Book your Victoria visit today. Why wouldn't you?
Why wouldn't you? Now, my Hall of Fame is probably your Hall of Fame because we were standing there watching it happen at the end, at the boundary line, after that six was hit and was lost in the covers, in the part of the sight screen, white covers that cover up all of the seats. And that's funny to begin with. And then everybody's racing around trying to find it, and they can't find it, and the box of balls comes out for the umpires to find a new one. And then you look over and you realise there are these white bumps under the cloth going one way, and then going the other way, and then going, and you know, you have a toddler, I suspect she's done the rummaging around under the sheets in the bed.
Fairly routinely, yes.
And whatever, that sort of thing.
Hi, Winnie.
It was exactly like that. It was like there were all these little kids going back and forth under the covering, and it took them quite a while. And then eventually, on the far side of the matting, the fella pops up out of a gap in the covers with the ball. And that was the biggest cheer of the day.
Absolutely. The crowd behind us, we were down on the side of the pitch for our post-play interviews. They went absolutely wild in the sun where they'd been baking all day, and fair enough too. I've got written on my Hall of Fame notes here, just a little sessions. It's not related to this, saying Swedish sauna.
Okay.
That was more about commentary. Did a whole bit today on commentary about getting nude in saunas. Hey, that's how we go on commercial radio.
Sure.
Let's scrap that. Let's go to this. How about the fruit?
There's some commentary boxes you could turn into it. You know, say if you opened the window on a day like today, you switch the AC off, you shut the door, you nude up, and nobody's going to know. It's radio.
I've got a bauble for our Indian watchers and listeners. Today is the anniversary of when Ravi Shastri won the Audi 100, the World Championship of Cricket, back on the 10th of March 1985. And don't you believe we milked that for all it was worth? Ravi told the whole story. I'll try and get it out on a podcast or something like that. He was in amazing form today. Also the anniversary, storytime link to when Gavaskar made his test debut, and they beat West Indies for the first time ever. Gavaskar making 67 not out. That was on the 10th of March 1971, and we should say as well, 60th birthday today of Pete Lawler, who's been on the final word before.
There we go.
And I've got one more thing on the final
Okay.
word of the Hall of Fame, sorry.
Right.
How cute were the fruit platters?
Yeah.
They were just adorable. Were they being made by one of the players' mums or dads? Every time the drinks break came out, the Indian players not only had fruit, that's fine, but little sticks in the fruit, like a cocktail party.
Sticks in the fruit, little cheese cubes, a little bit of cabana, you know, maybe a few sort of Ellen's mixed lollies. You know, maybe for the dessert, the main course sort of situation.
They'd all go into the lollies though. If there was an option of lollies and fruit, no one's touching the fruit, right?
Fruit, no one is. You can't do that. Maybe some of those dips, maybe that weird pink one. What's it called? Tara masala.
Tara masala.
Always hard to
That's
say.
right. Yeah.
Always very difficult to say. I enjoyed the bit on commentary today. I was like, Usman Khawaja's gone past Graham Yallop for the longest innings by balls faced by an Australian in India, which he made in this partnership with Kim Hughes in 1979-80.
Yep.
I was like, you would have been captaining that. Sunil Gavaskar says, yes, I was. I was like, okay. I thought, what do you remember about the game? He says, very little. I've tried to put it all out of my mind.
What a contrast. Whereas Ravi can tell you every moment of the significant moments in his career.
I suspect Sunil knew more than he wanted to let on. He just didn't want to go. It was a very long day, he said.
We're getting the wind up from our colleagues on the towards the doorway of the media centre. We all want to go to dinner for Pete's 60th birthday. Let's do that. Visit Victoria, visit melbourne.com. Stumps Day 2 India, 444 runs in arrears. If you really like what we do on the final word, patreon.com/the final word. You can contribute there, listen to the podcast. Story time's out tomorrow. If I do say so myself, it's another very good episode of our history show. That is only on the podcast feed. It is not on YouTube. Subscribe, iTunes, Spotify, all the usual places. Good night from Ahmedabad. Adam Collins, Jeff Lemon. Peace.
Farewell, friends.